Welcome back to the show. As promised earlier, I now have my interviewee, Karin Kirk. How are you today, Karin?
I'm really happy to be here. All is well. Thanks, Phil.
And I just happened to stumble across one of your articles, and now I adore 20 of them. So that's cool. Um, the only thing that I'm not really down with that is one of your focus topics is skiing.
Yeah.
I skied once,
All right.
and one of the
So
skis.
well.
No, it did not go well. One of the skis popped off, but it had a string on it, and so it flung
Oh,
around and struck me in the face, broke my glasses, and I don't know if anyone can see that. I got 21 stitches right here between my eyes. So I ended up face down in the snow, and someone stopped and said, "Are you okay?" And I did a push up, and everything was red
oh my goodness.
because if you get
Not a good
cuts
thing.
on your head, they can bleed more than it looks like, but
Right.
or it looks worse than it is. Uh, so we're out of that, but you talk about using stone for your kitchen counter and different parts of the house, which I think is fantastic, and I'm all for it. Um, we're going to talk about possibly global warming, geology specifically. That's your degreed area.
Yeah.
Um, possibly electric car. Well, electric cars, please.
We
Uh,
have to talk about electric cars.
yeah. And so I'm just going to jump in. I just today had this argument with somebody, and I don't know. I guess I kind of know where they're getting these talking points from originally, and then they just share them and reinforce them in their bubble. But
Yep.
all the time, people will say to me, "Electric cars, the grid can't handle them."
Sure.
And of course, the first thing I have to tell them is there's not a U.S. grid. There's three. Is that correct? Do you know?
I mean, it depends how you define it, but
Yeah,
yeah.
fair
I mean,
enough. So
yeah,
can our collective grids or grid handle electric cars?
absolutely. I mean, they already are, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
right now, electric cars might be 10%
Yep.
of the sale of new cars. And since cars last more than 10 years, that means like less than 1% of cars are electric on the road today.
All right.
And
Yep.
I'm guessing electric cars are probably 15, 20% of our electricity consumption. Our home use is 10 to 15% because commercial and industrial uses a lot of electricity.
Yep.
So even if everyone had a car, I don't know if you've done this math. I'm curious. If
I've not yet, but
if everyone drove an EV today, how much
mhm.
extra electricity would the grid need? I'm guessing like 10, 15%. What do you think?
Yes, yes. But there's actually a better way of looking at it that
Please.
helps because electricity isn't, it's not like money where you like if there's a set amount where more is always better.
Yeah.
All about peaks and valleys. It's all about timing. And so it's all about really the demand and then the supply and then the wires that connect it. So if we all plugged in so the peak time for energy for electricity use is morning and evening. It depends what season it is, depends where you live.
Right.
Evening tends to be a particular challenge in the summer.
When people come
Uh,
home from work.
home, they turn all their stuff on. The sun, it's been hot, and the sun is setting.
Yeah.
Solar is so if we all charged our cars at 6 p.m., we'd make a problem.
It's
But
going to be a challenge.
why would we do that? So charging your car is what's called a flexible load. You can put it anywhere. You can do
And,
it in home, overnight, at work, right? As long as it's not on that peak.
yeah. And constant load is what a conventional carbon based energy plant would want to have. Coal, natural gas, oil. For them, it's ideal if they're putting out the same amount of electricity 24/7. And so if electric cars can charge off peak, and
Right.
then even more magical, and we're not there yet, but if a significant percent of cars are hardwired into the grid, these
Yep.
giant batteries could charge to full overnight. And if we have peak demand at 3 in
Right.
the afternoon or 6 in the afternoon, then 5 or 10% or half of the electricity could come out of the car,
Mhm.
and it actually makes the grid more robust. Would that be a fair way to summarize it?
Absolutely right. And that means you don't need to build any more peaking power plants or ship in, electricity from some other region, yes, they can be the grid stabilizers because there's a big battery there. That's most of the time just sitting there. So yeah, they have. I
And
think they're really great.
I think when I was scrolling through, I saw a picture of you. Is that with a EV6? Is that what you're
Yeah,
driving?
V6.
So not secret information I'm giving out. You had it in a
Oh,
photo.
it's already in there with a picture and everything. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So what steps should we take to make the acceptance of electric cars more smooth, more tolerable, more enjoyable? Any ideas on
Yeah.
that category?
Lots of ideas. So, a lot of what I do is how people think about these controversial issues and what changes people's mind and what doesn't. I work on that relentlessly because it's really the greatest science or the greatest technology doesn't work until we get people. People are the hardest part, harder than the technology and harder than the science. So, yes, that's a great question. The thing, people generally love their electric cars. It's a
Yeah,
positive experience. They are really fun to drive. They're super convenient because you have a gas station in your garage. They're cheap, they're cool, they're modern. It's a lovely experience. So that firsthand experience is pretty powerful, maybe potentially more powerful than the whatever vibes you're getting from your social media bubble.
yeah,
So I think the just ease of use, the better experience is going to win over time. Some people, and my favorite response when they say, I'm never going to get an EV, I say, don't.
yeah,
Because let the rest of us have a great time. Like if you want to like opt out of something that's such an improvement in your life, okay, the rest of us will move on, right? So there's no sense in like really convincing those like curmudgeonly people, like, fine, you enjoy paying more for gas and having to go to the gas station and the pollution and all that, like, go for it.
I have a friend who's been staunchly anti-EV,
Mhm.
was looking at buying a new vehicle. I'll go as specific as General Motors, and they happen to have an EV variant of that same vehicle. And
Okay.
hey, what the hell? Let me give it a try. And they hop in it, they drive it for 10 minutes, and they're like, I'm taking the electric, man. This now,
Right.
they're not, a trendsetter, someone on the cutting edge of technology who knows about watts and kilowatts and volts times amps is watts. Uh, they just thought it was really fun, and they have an
Right.
outlet in their garage, and they plug it in. Uh,
Cool.
and I'm of the position, and I wonder if you have conflicting thoughts, but anyone that has relatively easy access to their own electricity. I mean, if you're on the eighth floor of an apartment building, okay, I get
Not
it.
yet.
That's going to be a lot harder. But
Yep.
if you have access to your electricity and you either do or can own a second car,
Oh
um,
yeah.
you're actually way better off getting an EV than sticking to gasoline.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, Another
Yeah.
thing people talk about is battery recycling. Do you have knowledge on that and where we are with battery recycling?
Yeah. Yeah. But I just want to loop back to and
Yes,
just touch
please.
on what because your friend there who was staunchly anti-EV and then ended up buying an EV,
Right.
that person becomes a really powerful agent of change because you and I are probably in similar spheres when we talk to like-minded people, and that's great. We should always start there. But then when you have someone outside that saying, I was against this, but then I drove it and it blew me away.
Yeah.
That's way more powerful than anything you and I can do. So that's great. And that's what I mean. The user experience is just undeniably great.
Yeah.
So it's going to win. Just
I,
might be slower than we'd like.
I think so. And sometimes I'm not as nice as I should be. So every
Sure,
once in a
sure.
while, I'll have someone tell me that I just had this earlier today. Someone told me that gasoline combustion vehicles produce only a tiny fraction of the exhaust that they used to produce. And I said, oh, so what I have the internal combustion engine garage challenge, where I challenge them to sit in the garage with their car on for an hour and tell me how that goes. And thankfully,
It will take you longer to die than it used to, right? So that's
yeah,
it.
and
It
thankfully
used to kill you fast.
they instantly come back and they go, "There's no way I'm doing that. It would kill me." And I go, "Oh, really? I thought they were clean now." So they know that they're not. They're not willing to even try
Yeah.
because they know it's a really stupid idea. Kids, do not try that at home. It's really hazardous. Um, Another
Yeah.
topic of yours, the countertops. That fascinates me. Um, what wisdom do you have for someone that might want to replace the floor, the wall, the countertops with natural stone materials, being the geology?
Yeah. So I mean, I got into that because we were like literally remodeling our kitchen. And so I was on all these like design board, like forums, like looking at, grout and stone. And I saw this massive amount of confusion over what stone is what. And so when my next trip to the stone yard, I said, I see people like struggling with this. Can you give me a few samples? And he said, yes, it's not well understood. And I took it home and did like Geology 101, very easy to understand if you're a geologist. And I thought, is this whole industry missing some geology? And it turns out it was. It's a big
Yeah.
industry. So I
Yeah.
became like geologist at large, not representing a quarry or selling anything, just working for the industry for their like education
Yeah.
and awareness. And yeah, so to take some science to it.
That's
So
nice. Where
the
can people
platform,
find that? What's the easiest way to find that information you get?
you can always get it through my website, which is karinkirk.com. So Karin with an I, Karin. Also, there's a website for homeowners and people in the industry called
Yeah.
usenaturalstone.com.
And
Um,
if you had to pick a new countertop today, what would you go with?
you know what? This is going to sound crazy. I love white marble.
Okay.
It's just timeless. It's the most beautiful and to my aesthetic, and it's not the most durable, but I know that going in because I understand the properties and I'm willing
Are we
to
talking about Carrara marble?
sure.
You
There's
gonna go with that?
actually, I mean, my ones I really love are actually from the US.
Okay.
So there's marble in Vermont, which is beautiful. There's marble in Colorado. There's marble in Georgia. So getting it locally, so if I want to loop back to like energy use, the
Yeah.
earth already did all the work for us. The earth made that stone with
Right.
all that beautiful geothermal heat. So the energy that goes in is to the fabricating it, cutting it,
Yeah.
and then mostly shipping it. And so if you're going to ship it from India to Montana, not great. But if you're going to ship it from Colorado to Montana, not so
Yeah,
bad.
I could see that would be. We did one floor in our house in Florida, and I've used ceramic tiles
Good
because
stuff.
they are really, really good at dealing with water. Meaning they can
Yeah,
sit in water for days and days and days, and it doesn't change anything.
yeah,
E-
yeah.
Excellent. Now, of
Sure.
course, you have a undergraduate and is it a doctorate in geology, master's?
Master's degree.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's going on in geology? What would you like to share with us about the current state of geology?
I mean, honestly, all my work now is in climate and energy, aside
Okay.
from the countertop. I think the earth science, if we want to broaden it a little bit, community is really focused on climate change. Because almost at the point where nothing else matters, like if we cannot get ahead of this, then it's really changing the earth. And, humans are a geologic scale agent of change, but faster than a lot of geologic events. Not as fast as meteors, but
Yeah.
it's wild to look at like to understand geologic time and how things change. And of course, people love to say, but the climate always changed. Like, of course, everything changes. But humans are the magnitude of change we're causing and the speed that we're causing it is overwhelmingly bigger and faster than like the normal ice age cycles. So I really like the geological perspective because I get
Yeah.
that the climate has always changed. Like frankly, the people who say that, like you learn that from us, right? From the same scientists that are saying, yeah, we tell you why it's changing. Why it changed in the past is different from why it's changing now. And the fact that it did change on its own doesn't mean that it can't change from people, right? Things can happen for multiple reasons. So I like connecting the past with the current day. I think it gives you a slightly longer time scale, a different sense of perspective.
I really like the analogy that I saw that I don't know if you originated the idea, but knowing about caffeine and coffee.
Yes, I
And,
love that one.
and I also sometimes talk about coffee because I make espressos and drive people nuts about that. But um, the basic gist was, can you, as a consumer, tell the
Mhm.
difference between a caffeinated coffee and a decaffeinated coffee? And I'm assuming you meant the biological effects of more energy, peppiness, and all that stuff. And I think most people can notice the difference
Yeah,
between a caffeine drink and a non-caffeine drink. But bring that home. Why was that? What's
yeah.
the purpose of that analogy?
So what's beautiful about that is a little bit of math. The amount of caffeine in a caffeinated coffee is about 420 parts per million. That's the same amount of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere right now.
Yeah.
So that math I originated when someone wrote to our NASA, ask NASA a question, and they said that this is all a hoax, it's a scam. There's so little CO2, it can't possibly make a difference. And so I drummed down into some math. I was like, there's got to be a way to make this really relatable.
Yeah.
People relate it, to like arsenic and other things that are very harmful in small amounts, but hopefully that's not relatable. Hopefully you haven't had much arsenic lately. But
Well,
coffee. So when I did the math, I did it over and over. That can't be right. That's too beautiful. It
yeah.
is right.
Well,
So it's a really good example.
it's been 4 years now, but I remember 4 years ago when COVID was coming around, and I think you've written or at least mentioned that in some of your writing. It's been a while. But someone asked me, said, Phil, if a mask can't stop the smell of a fart, how can it stop a
Oh,
virus?
right.
And it was so profoundly lacking of a basic understanding of how things work in the world, particularly in this case, how size is different.
Right. Yep.
And this was a person that was really, really smart, top of the
Yeah.
class in high school. Um, but they didn't jump to the knowledge or have the understanding that a molecule
Yeah.
is profoundly multiple scales, three, four zeros, five zeros, different size than
Right.
a cell or a virus or a droplet of water. I don't know, any thoughts on that random thought that popped in my head?
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. I think what I learned a lot. I really enjoyed answering emails that people write to NASA because people have ideas like that. They have a concept that they can relate to, but then it's the scale that is almost always the place where people go wrong. Um, and so that you pointed out a perfect example, like people just equate things of radically different scales as the same.
Yeah.
And that's where a little bit of math, a little bit of like explaining like the coffee. And, there's been every time I got an email like that, I've tried to find an example, but the coffee was the best one. But yeah, people are, math is hard. But so I
Yeah.
try, and that's why I do a lot of graphics in my work. I try to make the math intuitive so that
Which I am so delighted you brought it up because I was going to mention this and you beat me to it. At the Yale Climate Connections website, there's a whole bunch of your infographics, which I
yeah,
used one of them in a social media post, which was about electric cars. Uh,
yeah,
Wonderful stuff, by the way.
thanks.
Absolutely brilliant, fun, colorful. You don't want to have too
Right,
much detail, but you want to have enough detail, and lay things out where someone who, like we're talking about, just doesn't know that material, doesn't have
right,
to start from. They don't have to get a master's degree in geology to understand something that you're explaining. And one of your other articles that I really liked was you were talking about things that are in the Inflation Reduction Act,
yeah.
which I will say the Democratic administration of the last 4 years has failed miserably at getting this information out and
I
explaining to people
know.
what it does. I was delighted that it was called the Inflation Reduction Act
Mhm.
because it's one of the very rare times Democrats have labeled a bill
Yep,
cleverly.
yep.
We could
Agreed.
argue whether it's true or not, but it was at least well-intended, clever title. Uh,
Yep.
I just talked about it last episode or earlier this episode about people on Fox News talking about all the horrible stuff that's in that act, and on day one it's going to be repealed. What's in it that you know about and understand and can explain to the viewers and or the listeners?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot is in it, but the thing that really becomes a kitchen table issue is it can lower your energy bills. And so that does directly tackle inflation and that sort of those cost of living type things.
Yeah,
And so energy saving measures, obviously, if you save energy, you save money. So there's
right.
the parallel. And this gives you a big discount on many, many, many types of energy saving measures. And it's totally a win-win because less energy is obviously better, less pollution, less, drawdown on our power plants, less money that you spend. So let's see. That can be weatherization of your house. That can be upgrading your heating and air conditioning to something like a heat pump. That can be your solar panels. That can be your electric car. Um, Pretty much any way you can think of to save energy. And then you get big chunks of that money back, in some cases, 30% of the money back. Your electric car charger, just really, it's like making it easier for consumers. And it's really fun. It's,
Yeah,
how you these are investments that are going to pay off for the rest of the lifespan of your house. And I think one thing that's really hard about life these days is we feel like we're losing agency.
Yeah.
We're being controlled by whether it's government or oligarchs or whatever. But when you control things like your own energy, it feels really good. One of the funnest parts about driving an electric vehicle is zipping on past the Exxon station and saying,
Right.
"Screw you, Exxon. No thanks." Because I started working on climate change when I was an undergrad,
Right.
and it took from then until really recently for this to start moving as a public policy issue. And until then, I had to be Exxon's customer. That's the last thing I wanted, but I never had a choice. And it really bugged me.
Yeah.
So whizzing past Exxon with a car, better yet, fueled by solar panels, it's delightful
Well,
because now it's Exxon and our electricity utility all
yeah,
done.
they're
Thanks.
out of the
Thanks.
picture.
No thanks. Yeah, it's
I'm,
great.
I'm glad you brought it around back to solar panels and you said the 30% allowance, which is still current.
Yep.
Who
Yep.
knows
Yep.
after January 20th of next year. I've used that twice, by the way.
Great.
Put solar panels on two different houses.
There you
Um,
go.
and it is, a pretty quick return on the investment. It's not
Yes.
perfect, but it's the right thing to do. And in the long run, it's going to save me money.
Yep.
Uh, it's going to, allows you to lessen your dependency. And of course, if you have a battery and an automatic switch, you
Okay,
can
you're done.
sometimes go
Yeah.
a day or two or more on your solar panels,
Yeah.
maybe limiting your use, but you could run your
Mhm.
house for a while. I recently
Especially,
did an experiment running a few things off of my car and found out I could go into
yeah.
kind of like survival mode for 7 days on my car
Nice.
battery. And that
I mean, the
included
car,
air
yeah.
conditioning.
Wow. Yeah. Wait, included the air conditioning or
Not
excluded?
not the whole house air conditioning, because like
Right. Just where it mattered.
my house in Florida has a 3-ton and a 2-ton air conditioner. It can't
Got it.
cover those. That's a lot.
That'll
Um,
run out.
but I got a portable room air conditioner that's wickedly efficient. So it's not a $200 window unit. It's like a $700
Yep.
incredibly efficient unit um, that would pull maybe 200 or 300 watts and keep the room at whatever temperature you set it at for days.
Yeah.
Because the amount of electricity in a car battery is ginormous.
It's meant like you just said, it's many days worth. It's our car is 3 days worth of the average house for the whole house, which
Yeah,
of course yeah. So when we see extreme weather, sometimes it's not forecasted. Sometimes it is.
yeah.
Charge up the battery and then you've got a nice buffer.
Well, the
Yeah.
phrase I've heard is ABC, always be charging. So,
Yes.
so if you can charge at home, do charge at home. Uh, and people are maniacal about this 10 or 15-minute stop that they might have for the 3 times a year they go on the road and forget. Every night when I go to bed, I make sure my car is plugged in. It takes about 10 seconds and I don't have
Yes.
to go to the gas station once a week.
Ever. Right. Which is not a zero time thing, right? I
Right.
mean, yeah, right. People do. I mean, people get hung up because they like to get hung up, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and actually we've had nothing but a great experience. Yeah, you stop a little bit longer, but so what?
Yeah.
By then you're ready for a stop, and you go to
That's
the
right.
bathroom, and you eat a sandwich, or you stretch your legs, or you just read your email. I mean, it's really not a hardship at all compared to, like you just said,
Yeah.
every other day. There's zero time invested in fueling the car.
Now,
It's
out of
super.
all these subjects or something else, is there something that I didn't bring up that you want to cover that is fresh in your mind that you want to go over and educate people about?
Yeah, I think one of my things I've been talking about lately is since the election, I feel people are like a little are afraid, justifiably, and maybe less willing to talk about the things that are important to them. Whether that's reproductive rights or immigration or climate change. And I want to invite people to keep talking about those things, to not, there's a phrase going around a lot: do not obey in advance, right? Don't
Right.
stop talking about these things because you think you might get punished. Lean in, because when you do it, that gives sort of social permission for other people to do it. If you don't do it, that gives the same effect. People say, well, Karen's not doing that, then I'm not going to do either. So I think it's really important in this particular moment to lean in a little bit, as long as you feel relatively safe. You're not going to put yourself at any kind of risk. But especially those of us that feel safe, we should maybe lean in a little more and make sure that we're not afraid talking about what we know is true and we know is popular and we know is important, just because there's sort of this fringe that feels emboldened. Yeah,
Absolutely.
don't
I did.
let up.
Don't give up. Don't give up. Maybe take.
Don't let up. Keep it like
Yeah.
we're that the stuff I've written about the public opinion. So Yale and George Mason universities have done this immense body of work about public opinion, what people think about Inflation Reduction Act or climate change or climate solutions. Excellent research, very easy to access. People are on our side more than you think.
Yeah.
The people who deny climate change right now in the US, that's 11% of the American population. Feels like more because they're loud and because also there's a lot of fake bot
All the
type
bots.
things.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That is 11%. But the people who are worried about it and ready to act on it, that's 58%. So
And
you
of
got a
course,
58% chance someone's going to totally agree with you. So go
I,
for it.
I found a TEDx talk that you gave.
Mhm.
It's been a few years, and you should do more, by the way. Uh,
Thank you.
if someone wants to have you come to a corporate retreat or a convention to talk, what subjects would you prefer to talk on, and how do they reach you to invite
Yeah.
you to come give a talk?
That's a great question. I actually do that more and more and more. I was the week before Thanksgiving in Michigan, up at Michigan Tech University, had a fabulous time. Yes, I travel to give talks and I do them online. I teach a workshop about persuasive communication. That is a lot of fun. That it's skills that I've developed through academic work, through interviewing people on how they change their mind, and through thousands of knocks on doors because I go and talk to voters during election season, and we have really good conversations. So I've kind of melded that into a workshop, an interactive workshop where we role play, so you can practice having those harder conversations, whether it's with a policymaker or a family member or just a random person. So workshops on persuasive communication. I use the public opinion data to help whatever audience I'm talking to. So I talked to meteorologists in Montana who were reluctant to talk about climate change, and I pulled in all the public opinion data and showed them, you're good. You can talk about this. Your audience wants this. And so to use that data to make people more comfortable, more confident in stepping up and talking about climate change. So those are my favorite things. Sort of these win-win type topics, how to have better conversations.
And how do they reach you?
They reach me by, I would just say, KarinKirk.com.
And it's Karin.
KarinKirk.
And then the same last name as the captain.
Of course. Yep. Yes.
I saw your photo of the future birthplace of Captain Kirk. That's cool. I got to go get that. Absolutely. Well, that's all I had. And unless there's something else pressing you have,
we left one question unanswered about battery recycling.
Yes, talk to me.
Thank you. So those metals that come out of the ground, that's another big thing with EVs that people worry about, rightly so, that we're pulling metals out of the ground. We don't like extraction. Mining has a very bad legacy, well-deserved bad track record, well-deserved bad reputation.
Yeah.
Mining's really dirty and really bad. An EV battery gets pulled out of the ground once, serves the life of the car. Batteries are performing better than expected. They will last, 10 years minimum. They have warranties. Once it's in the car, I'm not, this idea that they're going to spoil in 5 years, this is not holding up. They're lasting much better than even expected. Anyway, when the car is done, those metal never really goes away. Right. So it's really recyclable and really valuable. And our economy more and more is going to be based on batteries. So I have no worries at all that the metals in my car will have several lifetimes. And so extraction is terrible. There's much less extraction with an EV because those battery minerals are just super useful. With a combustion car, of course, every mile you drive requires extraction. You never get away from it, ever, ever, ever. So the batteries are a big thing, but recycling is going to be huge. And it's not happening so much yet because cars are too new. Batteries are lasting 10 years and the fleet is much younger than that. But there are plants that are scaled up and ready to roll, and they're actually give us more batteries. And we're no, we're using them. So actually in a pretty good place.
One of my counterpoints to the anti-EV person, I'll ask them, what percentage of the gasoline that they burn is recycled?
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah.
And the other thing that I would love if someone could do it, and you might be the person to do this.
Yeah.
I tell people that gasoline cars use as much electricity as an
Right.
electric car.
That's right.
If you could run the math on that, and even
Yes.
better, have a little video or infographic, I,
Yeah.
I would love to disseminate that. And of course, if I could be helpful, I don't know if I
Yeah.
could be, but I think that would be great because I tell people that and they're like, "What are you talking about? A gasoline car doesn't use any electricity." And then I have to explain to them about drilling and pumping and transportation and refining, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So,
That's a great topic. I will work on that. I like that. That would make
oh
a great graphic. And it's like, you know, you've done well with communication when you've distilled it to something that's really gut feeling. You don't need any big scientific explanation to something
yeah,
quick and relatable. So I like that. I'll take that one on.
excellent. Well, Karin Kirk, thank you for coming on the Phil Ferguson show. And of course, anyone that's watching that has a need for a speaker, contact her at her website, KarinKirk.com. Yes, I'm just looking at it here. Look at all the fun infographics, read the stories, and call her and see if you can get scheduled to come give more talks. I'd love to see that.
I would love that. Thank you, Phil. This has been a really fun conversation.
Thank you.